Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Berlin Select Board meeting for, what is it, Monday, April 24th. Oh, my goodness, it's the end of April already. It is 7 o'clock. Let's get the meeting started. I need to announce that the meeting is being videotaped, and so I have to advise people that your voice and your image will be recorded and broadcast on our YouTube and cable access channels. Somebody will actually read it like word for word, too, what it says up there. We start with the approval of minutes for just April 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
We usually have some minutes for the 20th, too, for coffee talk, but
She was
maybe
on
not.
vacation.
Yeah, we can get them later.
Right?
I will make them up.
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of April 3rd. I did have one
Go ahead.
typo.
Yeah.
I think it's Julie Malik, isn't it? Not
Yeah,
Julia?
Julie.
Not
Yep.
Julia.
Right.
Okay.
So it's Julie,
Okay.
not Julia.
It is Julia, but she goes by Julia.
Ah.
Oh, all right, all right. Well,
So
then
either
either
will
way.
Either, she doesn't care.
Okay, I didn't know.
No kidding.
Whatever
Second.
you want to do, Mary, you could leave it if you
I
want.
think we'll leave it.
Okay.
Then all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 Are there general public comments to make on issues? If not, our next agenda item is the highway superintendent update, but he has been called away and is not going to be able to make it tonight, so we will see him soon, I hope.
Yes, his report is in your packet, but he is on a mutual aid call, so we thank him for his fire service.
So let's jump into town administrator report.
Okay, speaking of thanking people, I don't usually read my report verbatim, but there's a few things that I would like to read given the recent events that have happened in the town. I would like to begin by personally thanking Chief McQuillan, Chief Shartner, Highway Superintendent Fred Cummings, and all highway and public safety personnel who responded to the series of emergencies that occurred in town last weekend. I genuinely believe we could not have been in better hands to guide us through these challenges, and I'm extremely privileged to work with such dedicated professionals. I just want to thank you for all that you do to keep us safe. To provide some updates on everything that's been going on, the tragic house explosion that occurred on April 14th remains under investigation. We have several heroic neighbors and one of our own, Officer Molly Plant, to thank for their incredible bravery. They put their lives at risk and were able to rescue one of the two residents in the face of deadly fires, explosions, arcing power lines. It's pretty incredible. Sadly, the other resident, Judy Christensen, did perish in the explosion and subsequent fire. There is a GoFundMe page set up for anyone who would like to assist the family, and a memorial service will be held at First Parish Church on April 29th. I also wanted to note that Berlin Social Services Director Victoria Flynn is available to provide support to anyone in the community. You can call our office or email us, or you can reach her directly at 978-310-5914. Also on April 14th, a large brush fire started up on Mount Pisgah. Over the next several days, the fire spread to approximately 120 acres. It is fully contained at this point, fortunately, thanks to the work of our firefighters and those from 10 surrounding communities that assisted. Fortunately, no homes or structures were affected. Then, because that's not enough, on April 15th, we had a 3-car train derailment on Linden Street, and the cars unfortunately caught fire the following day. The equipment brought in by CSX to assist with the train derailment and fire have caused some road damage. The highway superintendent's working to assess that and will seek appropriate compensation. Unfortunately, a substantial number of trees also had to be cut back from the rail line to get to those derailed trains. So that is an update on everything that has been going on recently. Shifting gears a bit to next week, we have town meeting on Monday, May 1st at 7:30 at Berlin Memorial. All registered voters are encouraged to attend and make their voices heard on important issues, including the FY24 budget. The warrant was mailed out to all households on April 12th and is also available on the town's website. And in case you missed the last select board meeting, The Select Board and FinCom did unanimously vote to recommend a solution to the $732,715 budget deficit at Berlin Memorial, which includes a one-time cash infusion of $382,715 in free cash, in addition to the previously recommended 4% tax increase. On a very good note, the Recreation Court project down over at the schools has kicked off, actually, and is expected to be completed by the end of June. The project includes constructing tennis, basketball, pickleball, courts, and an ADA-compliant ramp and fencing. We also received requests for responses for the cable meeting room hybrid updates. Those came in, and the low bidder came in at $39,176. I received confirmation from Brittany on Friday that that quote does meet all of the specifications, and I notified, Key Code is the company. I notified them today, and I'll be working on a contract with them. Some really exciting news. I can't remember if we shared this at the last meeting, but we are doing a public safety radio upgrade, as everybody knows, and we've split it into a couple of phases. The project in the third phase has been selected by Representative Lori Trahan's office as one of her FY24 community project funding requests, which is really exciting. This is the first time Berlin has applied for these funds, and we're really excited to have been chosen to move forward. If funded, the town will receive $400,000 to create a third radio tower site on the south side of town to address substantial gaps in communication coverage, install microwave technology to connect all 3 sites, and to fund the purchase of interoperable portable radios. So the project is currently under federal subcommittee review. If approved, it will be passed on to the House and Senate for inclusion in the federal omnibus bill that occurs in December. So we will know by the end of the calendar year if we're approved for funding. And that will bring us to, is it 95%, Chief, if we're able to do that?
Almost 98.
Almost 98, okay. So the first 2 phases of the project are the antennas that we're working on now. And then remind me of the second.
Filters and repeaters.
Yes, thank you. Working on a number of other things, fire union negotiations, started having a few discussions around the ALS study. We received our annual mitigation payment from Highland Commons. Very excited about that. Started discussing the Welcome to Berlin sign from the Solomon Pond Mall, and that's basically it.
And the Welcome to Berlin signs, they're going to be a future agenda item to talk about further?
Yes. So the board would sign a sponsorship agreement with the Solomon Pond Mall, and that would include signing off on the sign, as you are the guardians of any town-owned property, right-of-way, things of that nature.
Because I've been approached by a couple of folks and looked at it myself. The sign seems sometimes more advertising than I thought it was going to be when I first saw this thing. What, it was 3 years ago it first came to us about something, and
Yeah, that was Cabela's.
yeah, or I knew it was the Economic Development Committee, and I thought
Right.
the idea, and I knew it was going to be a partnership with businesses, and knew that meant the business would probably have some acknowledgement on the sign. It just, as each successive design seems to be more advertising and less welcome to Berlin.
Yeah, it has a directional approach on one side of it with actual direction to the Solomon Pond Mall,
Right.
and then Welcome to Berlin on the other side.
And this is one of several, right? Because that's just one. Because originally they were talking about 2 or 3 of these at different points that also have different sponsors.
That's what I understand. Initially, Cabela's was involved. That fell through, so they've EDC's approached the Solomon Pond Mall. I'm trying to see if Peter Hoffman would be willing to join us on the 15th
Okay.
to talk a bit more about it.
Good. Other questions from the town administrator?
Yeah, to follow up on the GoFundMe account, for those that don't have access to Facebook, there is a jar down at the general store for anyone who wants to make donations to the Christensen family. So just if you don't have interweb and want to do that. And then Kristen, so the nets, the poles, the basketball hoops, those will all be the responsibility of the rec committee to pay for those and get those up, where the other, I forget the name of the company, is just putting up the fence around the court, correct?
Let me go back and look in the bid specs on that, and I'll get back to you. I don't remember exactly. I know they're doing like paving, striping, fencing, the ramp. I thought they were putting in the hoops, but let me check on the equipment piece of it, and
Okay.
I'll let you know.
Because you can't really play basketball without a hoop.
No, yeah. I just don't remember off the top of my head. I don't want to give you the wrong answer, so let me check and I'll get back to you.
Okay.
Chris? Do you have
No
questions?
questions.
Other ones, Peg?
Just on the correspondence, but I'll wait till we get to that, because I'm sure that'll be covered, so I'll hold questions until we go through those.
Okay. I think that brings us to old business, and we have a town meeting on Monday. 7:30, Berlin Memorial School. As we said earlier, all registered voters are encouraged to attend, and it's where sort of the I don't want to say the real business, because the real business happens in 1,000 committees around the tinted, but it's voting on the budget and things that really will affect a lot of things in town. And so there's 27 articles, and Chris, you wanted to sort of talk about like which ones we're reading so we can start practicing. Because I know I need to practice once or twice.
Just
if I'm reading a
practice
motion.
saying, and I'd like the moderator to recognize Kristen. so
Right.
that she can explain it.
Happy to do so.
Peg, you said you did some looking at, like generally the planning commission is going to take care of those, and FinCom takes care of the budget, and capital plan is going to take capital planning,
Right.
and the
CPA.
CPA is going to take care of some of theirs,
Capital, and then Cable Access has one,
right?
and then CPC has theirs.
Yep.
And historical,
Yeah, historical is planning, because I know June at the coffee talk was ready for it, and they have an adjustment they want to make to that one
Right.
as well.
so if since the town accountant generally defers to us, there should be 11 that fall
Okay.
under us. So then we'll just have to divvy, and just probably pick like 3 in a row, so we're not climbing all over each other
Yeah,
to do that.
and so what do you have for sort of the
I
numbers
had
again?
1,
Yep,
2,
yep,
3, 4,
yep,
6,
yep,
7, 8, 9,
yep.
15, 16, and 17.
It does look like sort of 3 groups,
Yeah,
because there's a section of the meeting, and 27 I thought too. Don't one of us?
the last one, so usually who's up for election stands up
Yep.
as the last one.
Yep. I think that means me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably the 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, for someone. 6, 7, 8, 9 for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And then
You take all the last ones, since you have to stand
yes,
up
I
for
have to stand at the end,
last.
so I'll take the last section. Chris and Peg, you can shoot odds or evens or something for the.
I can take the first 4 if you'd like.
All right,
Okay.
and we're gonna cut those out ahead of time, so we're not
Yes,
cutting at
Yes.
the meeting?
we don't have to rely on someone's
Scissors?
sewing scissors to or some. There's usually some small scissors that somebody has that we cut things out. So we'll cut out the motions. Mary will bring extra copies of these anyway, so we can cut some things out. And then I think the other thing we'll do that evening is just all those people who we think are doing the other motions. Again, tag them, like, you're reading number, like June Miller, you're reading number 5, right? And just to make sure they're not surprised when we get to that point of the meeting.
Or can we get a hold of them ahead of time, so
Yeah.
we make sure that they're there?
Yeah,
Well, FinCom, we know will be there.
right, yeah, I was gonna say, I
Yeah.
think most of them we already know, and the only one would have been potentially the assessor's office, which prior to the meeting, Kevin stuck his
Yep.
head in and we clarified that they'll do those too.
In Cable Access, so will it be Pat?
Most likely.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, we can confirm too. Just a question, what I've done before, and I don't know if this is easier, I've actually gone through and like marked up next to, each article who does what, and then make copies for everybody, rather than you guys having to cut and paste, like put your name
Well,
next to everyone? Does that
The-
make it easier?
The moderator really likes to have a piece of paper with a motion on it, and so we have
Oh,
to,
it does.
since
You
we're
still
turning
do
into the
that.
moderator a piece of paper, it's
Oh,
good.
okay.
Yeah.
But in fact, we should make sure that are written up, the motion that's gonna be made for the school budget,
Yeah.
since that's not what's in here, we're doing an amendment to it. That amendment we probably should write up ahead of time and make sure that people have seen or are clear with.
Okay. Because when you have the motions in
Right.
the warrant, you
Right.
typically don't have to do motion forms. That's kind of the advantage
Right,
of having the
yeah.
motions in
They
the
still
warrant.
require to
But
be handed in.
Yes.
Yep.
the ver-
that's not
the-
required by law.
Oh, understood.
But we
Right.
do it.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotcha.
It might not be required by law, but.
Oh, it's required by the moderator. I
Right,
gotcha.
yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
got it.
It helps keep him organized in the way he thinks of things, and so I
Yep.
think we want to
Okay,
keep
so we
supporting
need
that.
to make up some motion forms. Okay.
Yeah.
I think it also
Got
helps
it.
that way.
Yeah, I think it helps always too. And in some respects, what we tend to do is since the motion here, I actually cut them out and I'd probably end up writing the number next to it just so they know what number it is. And
Or I can just make them I can
Yep.
do it in a Word doc
Yep.
for you, and that way you don't have to cut things.
that would be nice too.
You can do that.
And then as we are meeting as a select board at 7 o'clock that evening ahead of time, and so will be the public meeting. Our general course of action is anything that comes up in town meeting, because sometimes during town meetings, there are things that require a quick select board opinion, and if we have a posted meeting, we can sit there and go, yes, we can vote on that, because sometimes that's important, especially if a motion gets changed from its current wording. And again, I think June Miller had some sense of what she was going to amend number 5 to be.
Yeah.
Is there any other sort of questions for town meeting? I think we're pretty set.
Yeah.
It's indoor. If the weather's nice, we're going to try to have windows open or something to help with some airflow. Good. Now I gotta look back what's next on the agenda. I might, if I take some discussion, I would take the other new agenda items first and then do the town administrator review last, the other new items.
Yep.
And so let's start with appointments. Go ahead, Kristen, announce the appointments.
Okay, we have an appointment to the Energy Committee for Amy Grenier. I always want to say Grenier because it's the French pronunciation. I apologize.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make you fancy. Annually renewing. It's an annual renewal. This term would go through May 31st of 2024.
So I'll make the motion to appoint Amy Grenier to the Energy Committee with a term renewing term through 5/31/2024.
I happily second.
Thank you, Amy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I feel a need to raise my hand every time I vote aye. It'll probably be something it does forever. And then another one.
Yes. So this is actually a recommended appointment. Bob Blair from the Council on Aging is willing to serve on the Worcester Regional Transit Authority's Advisory Committee. There is a opening, and they look for citizens that are willing to serve. And Victoria discussed it with Bob Blair. He was interested. We thought he'd be a good fit for this position, but they require a recommendation from the local authority for that position.
Okay, good. I'll make the motion to appoint Bob Blair to the WRTA Advisory Committee.
Happily second that as well.
I was going to say, it's just great. Thank you, Bob, for stepping up there. And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Historic Commission artifact storage request.
Can we skip down? Because I have a feeling that one's going to take a little while.
Okay.
Mhm.
Let's jump to renewal of Berlin Auto Parts junk scrap license on Colburn Road.
Okay, so this is an annual renewal. Their license expires, Mary, is it April 30th or May
Yes,
1st?
April 30th.
April 30th. Mary has reached out to department heads. We have received feedback. The chiefs were out there today. No major issues or concerns. I would recommend renewal of this license.
And then in addition to this, don't we sort of do like an annual walkthrough in July sometime as well? Or
We used to, but then we passed it off to
Okay.
building
Yeah,
commissioner
yeah.
and.
Who
and-
probably know the rules way better than
Correct.
us know the
Yeah.
rules.
Right.
Yeah, the Chiefs did that site.
Yeah.
Oh, you meant the select board do a walkthrough?
Yes.
We used to.
Oh,
Yeah.
I gotcha, okay.
Yeah, we used
Yeah.
to.
We used to,
addition,
but then
yes.
we realized that
We know
there really
nothing
wasn't a lot of value, so.
Not true.
about that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and they usually report back if they
Right,
have any concerns.
right.
Sure.
Before
Which
we
again,
take a
they-
vote.
Right, and Mary, if you could just confirm, I did look at the feedback and spoke with the chiefs. Did we receive any specific feedback, concerns regarding renewal?
No.
Good.
No, there've been sometimes like trucks before they open idling too long and. I
And
mean-
bright lights and noise, but that's
Right.
been.
They've
But
worked
they've
with
been
the
taking,
Board
I
of
think
Health.
they've been very, very receptive, and sometimes
Yes.
it's just, you know, they don't want them there either that early, and, you know,
Right.
it's the private truck drivers, but I think they've been a good partner, so I.
And
ready
they,
for-
and they have been told to tell the,
Yeah.
or call the police department.
Yep,
Mhm.
You know, people have an issue, so.
There were just two things. The Board of Health had worked with them on noise mitigation matters, which I think are complete.
Mhm.
And there's a point of sale issue that they worked through with the police department to make sure that they were not helping with the fencing of stolen goods,
That's completed.
and that's completed too.
good. So
Okay.
there were some issues they were helping resolve, good.
So I'll make a motion that we renew the Berlin Auto Parts junk scrap license.
And I will second.
Great, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Special event application for the Berlin Dump Run Car Show and Meet on Woodward Ave. So that's what you're here for?
Yes, it is.
Do you want to tell us about it?
Could I? Yes,
Yep,
yes.
okay.
I'll stand up so I'm not
Yep.
rude to anyone.
Yep.
Sorry, I brought a drink in case we were here for a while.
Uh-huh.
My name is Michael Sheehan. I'm originally from Hudson. I grew up near Arthur's, the Big A,
Mhm.
in Hudson. I moved here in 2007. So as they say, I didn't make it too far in life. I made it over to Berlin, and that's pretty good for me. So being from that, I grew up with old cars, antique cars, and have a affinity for them. And I thought I would bring that enthusiasm here to Berlin into the Woodward Ave Town Common with the hopes of collecting the majority of people's cars from in and around the town. There's a lot of history in this town where there was an old Hudson dealership here. A lot of people that do have private collections within the town, and I've tried to advocate to these people to bring your history out to the common, to Berlin, with the hopes of combining our partnership with my idea with the Berlin General Store to give them some revenue upkick and to provide a place for people to get coffee, refreshments, and things of that nature. So it would be from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m., and it would be mostly local cars. So there's no advertising from my end that's on social media. If other people have put it out there that it's a possibility, it could be. One of the things we tried to take care of was sanitation, where I have 2 porta potties coming from CSI tentatively, pending the vote tonight. So we'd be able to provide porta potties for people without having to burden anyone else in the community. Taking an insurance rider out for the event through Berlin Insurance. That way, if there's any accidents or things like that, they would come to me because I'm the sponsor of the show, and then I've taken this insurance policy to help mitigate any issues that would be foreseen. One of the caveats to this is that we have people that are coming to the show of an older age because that seems to be the people that have these cars collected. For instance, my father's here tonight. The white Buick that's outside was his father's car, and he bought it new in 1962. Not to tell everyone his age, but he's 85, and this is kind of how I'll always say that you're never an owner of a car, you're just a caretaker. So through a lot of his friends and similar ages, these are the people that are willing to come and participate in Berlin and bring these beautiful cars to the town. And through my connections with them, I'm advocating that this event would happen. My idea would be approximately 60 cars based on the spaces that I've allotted and looked at, and go from there. I've been through this process trying to find someone that is willing to come and be a part of it and take donations. I am paying for the porta potties, the foundation of this event. One of these things, since the tragic passing of Judy, where we had this event, there could be a caveat to this, where when the people come in, I've asked them to bring canned goods to the town. for the food bank. And in addition, we could have people stationed there to ask on behalf or to place some donation bins, and also that would also help the donations that are being taken at the Berlin General Store through the influx of people that predominantly have cash versus debit because of the technology difference. It's just kind of what I've realized through life. So I'm here as a town resident since 2007. I live on Allen Road in Mrs. Schultz's old home, and I store several antique cars down there, and I'm very happy to be here. I appreciate your time, and I know that there's some discussion about who was on board and sort of who it's going to affect. And based on my just character, and hopefully I can demonstrate this, I would try to ensure that it's a safe, reliable event where there's no nonsense happening. And these predominantly are people that are very mature, have put their lifetimes either savings or effort into maintaining and keeping these vehicles running. And if allowed, I think we could have a great event. And then if things need to be tweaked, if there's another opportunity, that's something else. But I would advocate if this does go forward, if there's someone from Judy's family that wanted to get in contact with me to somehow organize that for the family, that's something, because no one else has stepped up. And unfortunately, this has happened, and it's a good opportunity. So I thank you for your time.
Yep.
I thank you for your consideration. And I'll sit.
yeah.
Thank you.
There was an application put in, the department heads have had a chance to comment on it, haven't there? Or are you closing off Woodward Ave, or so you're just using the parking spots on Woodward Ave?
Well, so I do a lot of traffic in my life. The plan I would propose to anyone that would have the opinion and the ability to close the traffic would be that the cars would enter from across from the general store coming northbound on Carter, and at that point they would take a button hook and come back down Woodward and make that one way heading southbound. That way the cars can back into the diagonal spaces that are there, and the fronts and the hoods would then be open to the public to view from that section. There is some discussion with the First Parish Church. I'm not going to speak for them at this point in time, but there may be the ability to use other property in the town common to help facilitate the flow of the vehicles and to have them parked, and then to also park them on both sides of Carter in the downtown common where it's so wide and emergency vehicles could still make access to and through the center of town. So that would be the tentative parking plan, and then the rough estimate would be about 60 cars, and at some point they're just going to have to, if there's too many cars or not enough, we'll just adjust the flow and the volume and see where we end up, because all of this could be for naught and it could rain. So you just don't know, but that would be the tentative plan. And then to have the national anthem is going to be sung potentially from Keith's Music in Boylston. He's going to provide an advanced student to come and sing. So the hope would be to draw some power from maybe the 1840 Town Hall for the speaker system to have a young kid come on Memorial Day and sing the national anthem in the center of town. So in my mind, I can see it, and we'll have to see where we go. But thank you. Are there any other questions?
Was it 8 a.m. or 9 a.m.?
8 a.m. to 1
Oh, it is
p.m.
8 a.m. Okay.
Yeah, the car peoples tend to get up very early for these shows because they've kind of prepared the cars the night before, so they like to get a head start and get there.
And tell me why it's called the Berlin Dump Run.
Well,
car.
because growing up in Hudson, we never had to go to the dump. But what does everybody do on Saturday morning? They make a dump run. So where there was no other event happening, I just thought it would be fitting, and where it's local people would understand that once they kind of measure it.
Yeah.
And then I thought the be nice and use your blinker kind of kicks in, but we're just a car family, and we very much would like the opportunity to be on Woodward Ave in the center of town. So
Okay.
thank you.
Peg?
No, stay there.
Okay. It's okay.
You don't know me. I'm the one with like the 85 questions.
That's fine.
Okay.
Please,
and then I'm
thank
going to
you.
lean, because I'm going to lean towards you, because I have some for you too.
Okay.
So the engines will be off. There'll be like no revving, loud.
No. So what would happen, they would come in,
Yep.
and the only time that they would be running is upon entering, parking, every vehicle shut down, and then once they start to leave, that's when you'll start to hear them. But during the show, there'll be no music, there'll be no vehicles, no alcohol, no vehicles running, no alcohol. We're not providing anything and not condoning anything like that. This is a kid-friendly, family-friendly, relaxing time to have. And then the cars will orderly be let out at some point and have them all head out so that the police department isn't tied up for any duration of time trying to handle things.
Okay. I'm assuming if there's any trash that you'll be responsible so it won't end up on highways agenda to
yes.
monitor trash?
Yeah, I have tentatively 6 to 10 volunteers that
Okay.
are going to be there to help essentially park cars using walkie-talkies, and we're just going to stage based on where I designate the cars are going to park based on make and model and things of that nature. So we're just going to kind of have an A, B, C, and D depending on what properties are available to us to utilize.
Okay. Feedback from the neighbors, have they been consulted about this? I mean, I'm just looking at the email that came from a resident on that road, and she was kind of upset, shall we say, that this is happening really without any notice to her. So
Sure.
have they been contacted?
Well,
Feedback?
so if you're referring to the woman that has a mother that lives in the home there, so I have spoken to her on the phone. I advised that I think that based on our dispositions are different, that she utilized the select board for her issues to be heard. I flyer dropped the 19 Carter, and they were very happy to talk to me. They put me in touch with 3 of the older gentlemen there that have Porsches and different vehicles, so they seemed enthusiastic about it. The First Parish is on the fence based on some of the dispositions that are different, so I think that they have to make their own decision whether or not they're for or against it. Originally, it seemed as though they were moving forward to the residents on Woodwood. I flyer dropped all of them that I could. One of the houses was for sale. The other 2 houses were receptive. The only one that wasn't receptive was the one next to the town hall. However, the initial conversation with the woman's husband was positive out in front, and he relayed the information to the elderly woman, who seemed to be okay with it. It was later on that I was made aware that she or people have a difference of opinion.
Okay. Fire, police, safety, presence, who pays for that?
Well, I mean, it'd just be like a soccer game to town commons. Like, you know, we're talking about coming out, putting down road closed signs. Originally, we're gonna do it one way, but I think it's best that I'll come out in my own time and put out road closed signs and just shut Woodward Ave down, so we don't have to worry about traffic once the cars are in there.
Okay. And then notification on our famous blinky sign to let people know what's going on.
Yeah, sure, if we can get it.
Okay. And are we gonna formally respond to the neighbor that had these concerns?
We can.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would be just nice to close the loop.
Sure.
I think the
that.
major concerns were like worried about motorcycles
Yep.
and spinning tires and
Yeah,
you know, I kind
length of
of,
day,
you
yeah.
know, this isn't Worcester, you know,
Mhm.
this isn't the big car show in Worcester, like if that happens here.
And one of the residents did indicate to me that she has flowers that are coming up, and she would very much like to have them protected. So my plan is for the people that have these concerns is to put some sort of wooden stake with a caution tape and to separate that area, so people, it's very pronounced that it's not a place for you to be trampling through or
Yep.
parking on. So it will be very designated, very specific, and we'll keep it as tight as possible.
And I think that was some of the questions, how many cars, motorcycles?
Yeah, and the motorcycle caveat to this is that there's always somebody with a motorcycle that comes to a car show. So you kind of have to mitigate them and put them someplace. So the goal would be to put them in a small little corral where they can be, and that's how you keep them away from falling into the antique cars and things like that. They can fall into each other. I'm not a motorcycle person. I encourage people to have their hobbies, but predominantly we are antique cars and classic cars.
Okay. All right.
Right, that's the first time you're doing this. You don't know if you're really going to get 5 cars or 70 cars. You know? So
Correct,
You're basically
yes.
planning at about 50 or 60 or so, shutting it down and basically saying, really, no more at this point. Thank you for bringing it, but we're
Yes,
sort of
and-
full.
Yes,
Yeah.
and yes, and
Yeah.
if they would like to go park here at the town hall and walk over, something to that extent, but it'll be, once it's reached capacity, it's done, it's closed,
Mhm.
and even if cars are leaving, traditionally don't allow other cars back in, because the show has to dissipate, or else you'll encourage people to keep coming.
Mhm.
So once they're locked in and they're parked, and when they leave, we all, it'll start to go from there.
And this won't interfere with any of the Veterans Day events for that time, will it? Do you know? I know I'm putting you on the spot. I'm looking like right at you. Sorry.
We do Monday.
Yeah, they're Monday.
Okay, you're Monday.
Yeah.
Okay.
I tried to do my best to find out if there were any other events scheduled on that day, and it didn't seem like there was. And I do apologize to the select board that I didn't see the I didn't understand the permitting process at the time, so it wasn't my attempt to kind of avert the system. It's just that I didn't realize that the permit and how we got to here, so
That's
I
why we're
appreciate
here.
your
Yeah.
consideration,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, we're fine, I'm fine assuming sort of good intent, especially someone the first time through. You know, if this was your 6th event in town, then maybe we'd feel differently. But yeah, as a first event, I'm fine assuming good intent.
And appreciate trying to get in the
Yep.
general store and to.
Well, that was my,
So.
yeah, and I know that there was some discussion about having the car show down on the South Common, but I felt as though that would take away from a local business that would essentially be providing that type of service for everyone. And I just trying to,
Yeah.
spread it and see how it goes. And if maybe it does grow to something and some organization in town wants to take it over and I can get my friends to come to their show, it's, it's something Berlin could benefit from, in my opinion.
Kristen, you said?
2 comments for you. One, you mentioned you had the insurance. The town of Berlin would need to be listed as additionally insured on your certificate, and we just would need a copy of that.
I can do that. Yes,
Perfect.
please, thank you.
And the other, if you were looking to connect with 1870 on a sound, you were mentioning possibly like a sound or connecting in.
Just power, yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Sandra Pendergast is our manager over at 1870, and we
Okay.
can get you in touch with her.
That'd be great. Please, thank you.
Got it.
And did you have questions?
No,
Yes.
I
Peg and
asked mine.
Okay.
You made a whole half a page. You're good.
Okay, yes, yeah, no, I'm planning on living in this town for the rest of my life, so I'd like to make friends and not, have it work out fine. So I will make every effort to keep it contained.
What's your pleasure?
I can make a motion if you'd like, if you're ready.
I'm ready. I'm for it. Yep.
Okay, I would make a motion to approve the special event for the Berlin Dump Run Car Show or Meet.
Seconded.
I think we've had our conversation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much for your time,
Congratulations.
and I hope to see
We
you
look
all
forward
there.
to it. I will
You're all
definitely be
welcome,
there.
yes,
Are you
yes.
gonna have any Jags? Any Jaguars? I love Jaguars.
Oh, you better believe those. You should see the cars that are going to come.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, because they have these collections.
Yeah.
It'll be wonderful, yes.
Awesome.
And,
Yeah, so-
and best of luck.
Yes,
And,
yes.
Best of luck.
and we'll hope it goes well so
Yes.
that
And
They
if
can-
there's
For
nice
concerns
weather.
afterwards,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
come talk to me constructive,
Yep.
yeah.
If it does rain, when would you cancel it? Like a 48-hour notice?
You guys just aren't going to come.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
they just,
they don't
you
want
know,
their cars.
They'll
Right.
just
won't-
look and-
they won't come.
Right.
Yeah, so and I
Okay.
would still go down that morning, even though
Just in case.
and say hi. Well,
Right.
thanks for coming, but it's not happening. And for the most part, people do
So
understand
like
that
polishing their car.
they won't
I
come.
know.
Okay, cool.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for your
Yeah,
time.
thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
A nice car out in the parking lot, by the way, too.
Oh, we've
Yeah,
received
yeah,
comments.
Yeah.
People want to know whose car that is
Yeah.
already.
5.5.
In our
Thank you. Have a great night.
taking things in random order for tonight, I believe we can do a highway department
Yes.
presentation.
All right.
It's a good thing Mary was able to print off a copy today. So I won't bore you with old business or the new business, I'll just jump right into it. So, just like every other month, so we're still catching up on all the trees. We spent 6 days, we got 18 trees removed, amongst other large leaders that were broken from ice storms and things that we're finding. We started working again down below with the cruisers park to get rid of the bird issue down there. That's really kind of been put on hold now that spring's here and we're gonna start cleaning the streets and everything else. But as time allows, we are gonna get back down there.
Mhm.
But at least we started from the food pantry door and kind of like pushing them away. They are still coming back because, excuse me, they're getting in a little crevices that we haven't sealed up yet. So that's still a work in progress. We're not sure when we'll get that done yet. So the battle with the potholes continues. Hopefully, the roads that we're spending a lot of time and money on are the ones that we're gonna be reclaiming. And now that that's actually underway, we should be getting into that probably more or less between July and early August. We'll be on the schedule for it. We had all our annual inspections done for all our trucks and equipment. Everything passed with the exception of one, which is a dump truck. We had a broken leaf spring that the guys, when they were checking over the truck, didn't pick up on it. So that actually got our first safety rejection sticker. That's been repaired. We're just waiting for them to come back and give us the free inspection to get that back. One issue that we are going to have probably next year, is our basin truck. It's a 1976 International, and he was very reluctant to put a sticker on it this year. So we basically have 1 year left. And we're
Capital
gonna be-
FY25?
Yeah, we're gonna be looking at that. But we're gonna have to do some research on it because we're not pulling the material out of the basins that we used to in the past. So I think it's gonna be a hard sell to be like, we need 125 grand for a truck that we use twice a year. So we're gonna try to think it. And I know Clinton has one on a pickup truck, so they have the combination body where they can dump the body, put a new body on. We might be thinking that route, so it's a multi-purpose truck instead of just use it and put it away. So we got to do some research on that, but we'll have time. So for the nor'easter that was supposedly forecasted, we got like 7 inches here in Berlin. Everyone else got slammed. But for that, we actually had to spend the money to get a plow blade put on the loader and swap skis on the pusher. If it weren't for that, we probably would have made out pretty good. It would have been nice had the state actually classified that for like recouping funds, because I think I shared it with you. It was between $18,000 we paid out between part-time, full-time wages, overtime, removing snow the next day. So we could have got some back, but they didn't declare it for our area, which is really bad. Yeah, of the month, we only had four winter events. The majority of them were just a mixed precipitant that takes up just as much time. We get a couple of routine oil changes done. The snowblower tractor was taken down and made back into a lawnmower. Our biggest expense was the new Bobcat chipper that we took ownership of. Already had a problem with the clutch and the flywheel. So that went back. That wasn't covered under warranty. But while the technician was in there, he noticed that the rim main seal had started leaking. So it was all in the bell housing. Caterpillar did cover that under warranty. But it still costed us just over $5,000 to get that back running again. And it's quite a workhorse. I thought it was going to be too much, but it's really it's working. So truck 32 is the newest of the 6-wheel dump trucks. That one has a DEF system on it as well. That actually failed. We did have a recall on it. That recall we still can carry. The one that they charged this to was it was a recall from the Federal Motor Carrier. So it was a federal emissions that we were able to get that fixed under. The only problem was we had to have it towed down to Walpole to the international dealer, and everything was covered 100%. So we were without basically 3 trucks for almost a week and a half. One truck is still out in the shop in Shrewsbury, having the final repairs made. That's a sander, so that when that comes back, we'll just have it for the winter. But that one, that's like a $4,000 bill, because that had ABS issues. So that's still out being worked on. We hosted the rabies clinic. I'm assuming that went pretty well. I didn't stay for the whole thing. We just opened it up. That was the day we had our inspection stickers going, so it was kind of busy that day. Our South Street Bridge. After speaking with our engineers a couple weeks ago, the projected construction date now might be pushed off until spring of '24. So that's all got to do with Mass DOT and moving things along. Our sanitary report. Our sanitary inspection for the library was done. That's done every 5 years, so we had our year. Actually, the elementary school had theirs done just recent, either Berlin or Boylston. So we had several gigs, all minor. We had 30 days to get them done. We just have one more to do, which is posting the signs for public drinking water. One thing they did show concerns of was the level of sodium in the water for the salt. So we're actually working with them now to see, because they don't have any information as to what kind of well it was. So we reached out to Sullivan. Our Board of Health was able to give us a plan. I believe it was from like 1970 something was when the well was done. So we're still trying to compile some information for DEP on that. We do know that it's a drilled well. It's not a shallow well or an overburden. So we're still working with them to get that done. As long as we get our signs posted. That was basically the last thing we had to do. because originally they were nervous because the new septic that was put in, they didn't know if it was within the 100-foot buffer. But we were able to get a plan, and we submitted the plan to them, and they were more than happy with it. So we're on the right track to clearing all that up. Our interdepartment stuff, we did some work at the transfer station, just crushing the ACs, refrigerators, once a Freon was evacuated from them. We ended up getting the okay from Julie to remove all the old soccer nets that had been accumulating by the chicken coop. We didn't get rid of them, we just relocated them to behind the transfer station, because we're constantly having to fix the piping down there for like the safety rails and things at the dump. So it's free pipe, we got it, so we kept it. So we can just repurpose that if the ton comes. And just the desk was picked up. They needed a desk for the transfer station. The one we had was way too big for his office. Boylston Elementary was gracious, they offered one up. So we went and picked it up and dropped it off for Wednesday, and Paul and Stan moved it in. So that's March.
Good.
Very good.
Questions?
No, and I know it's an April event, so, but thank you for taking care of the bleachers.
Oh, well, we're still working with them. So we did get them moved. We're just trying to figure out.
Yeah, I
what we
saw
can
them
do
down by
with
the
this
salt
all.
shed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we got rid of the hazard. Hopefully no one's climbing on them down there.
Did your admin start yet?
Yes, yes.
And how
Karen
is she
started,
doing?
This is her second week. She's
Fitting
doing
right
good.
in?
Yeah, yeah. Minor tweaks.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, it's rough. I'm used to, having payroll and bills done like before 6:30 in the morning, so come 7, we're out the door working. So that's what I was talking with these guys about. So it's a learning curve for me, because now I gotta wait to go through them and sign it and deliver them and then go to work.
What
Yeah.
streets are you looking at to pave?
Highland Street, from the town line to Randall, and then from Randall into, I don't know the number, but it's just past Hickey Foster's old house, right there.
I mean, because there's just like your streets in town that forever have a pothole while it's the beginning of spring, and then when spring's gone, it's like the road comes back up,
Oh, yeah.
and it's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
And the South Street Bridge, the patching you've done to it looks like it's holding decently, so it's going to be fine till 2024, right?
I'm hoping so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Drive down Pleasant.
Yeah.
Down
Well,
Pleasant or up Crosby.
Speaking with the bridge engineers, they're not worried about lowering the weight limit or closing
Okay.
it or anything at this time.
Good.
And I told him, I was like, it's pretty bad. And he's like, yeah, well, yours isn't as bad as what's out there in the state.
Right, so maybe we want to
Boy.
drive South Street and not other streets in the state,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
that bridge is in better shape.
Well, when Pleasant was closed, then I was a little worried as I saw these huge trucks
Yeah.
going down South Street.
Yeah, and that too. They still come up there.
Mhm.
Tractor trailers will come up. One just rounded the corner up here the other day, and
Is the sign still there? Because usually that's the first thing that goes.
yeah,
Okay.
that one's still there, thankfully.
Question for you on trees.
Sure.
We had someone stop by today that asked about the blue and red tags on trees, if those were ours or National Grid, and how we determine which trees should be removed.
So all those tags are from National Grid. They started coming in with their arborist second week of January.
Okay.
And
that's what
they
I
were only
thought.
supposed to be in town a month, but they went through almost the whole town, I think, because originally it was just for their transmission lines.
Oh, okay.
So all the tags that are out there were actually done by them. At some point, they're supposed to compile a list and meet up with me so we can go through them.
Okay.
And then they're gonna contract a company like they did with Stanley Tree.
Great.
And come in and do their removal.
Okay.
Because we're actually shocked as to how far back some of the trees are. Like literally, they're clearly private property, way in, and it's like, but the people haven't ejected, because they want them gone, and, National Grid's paying for it.
That was me. They came to my house, and I'm
Yeah.
like, take them down. Here you go. So, yeah.
So, yeah, we haven't heard from them yet, which I'm actually surprised.
Okay.
Because they are cutting, I don't know if it's me or someone said they're all cutting already in someone else's time.
Oh, okay. I've run into the issue before where when National Grid comes in and takes down trees that aren't dead, but they are in the way of power lines, you will have the folks who come out because they're upset that trees that aren't decaying or, whatever, dying, are being taken down. So just, and you've probably experienced this before
Oh,
as
yes,
well.
we have.
So
But
I don't know if
the-
this was our first foray into that or not, but.
Oh, no. Well, the majority of the trees that we've seen, they've lived their life.
Okay, oh, good.
And usually, if it's something that's got life in it, they just trim them. They'll come out.
Okay.
Actually, some of the trees, you wish they just removed completely because the way they trimmed them,
Mhm.
it's horrendous.
Yeah.
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 But yeah, the majority of ones that we found.
It's like a bad haircut.
Yeah.
Super
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
Completely taken the
Doesn't look
center
like a
of the
tree
out.
anymore.
Yeah.
And they'll take all the branches away. That's not going to fall on you to go around and clean up after them, correct?
Nope, so that's one of the questions I'm gonna ask them, because when Stanley came in last time, they took all the brush, they just left all the lumber, and that's when Dave, Jim, and I would go around and just pick up lumber, load it in the truck and get rid of it. I've heard rumor that they're actually bringing a log truck, so it should be a one-stop shop if they come through. We shouldn't have to do anything. But I'm definitely gonna clarify when we do meet. And I think it's great they're coming, because
Yeah.
think of the money which they just.
Right.
Time.
Mhm.
Right, because in a month you got 18 done, and the list was like a couple hundred when we last saw it.
Oh, yeah,
Not more, yeah.
it's incredible.
Yep.
How has it worked with Clinton? Have they started using the truck yet, too?
Yeah. Yeah. They've asked for it a couple times, they never came for it,
Hmm.
which is a bummer, because like, we could schedule to work it that day. We
Right.
just had it out today, up on Linden Street. It took down a monster. But yeah, every day we try to get out there. I know the guys at one point might have been mad at me in the winter, because it was like every day, every other day, we were out cutting trees. It's like, this is what we used to do, every
Right.
day in the winter, that's what we did. But now that we're getting into spring season now, like they started mowing the ball fields today.
Hmm.
So now we actually gotta pick and choose. So they're gonna be rainy days, we're gonna be out there cutting trees. If we can't mow grass, might as well cut trees.
Right.
Yeah, so.
Good.
Some complaints in your way.
Yeah.
It's okay. I know the context now, so we're
Yeah,
good.
I mean, everyone has rain suits. I bought rain suits, so there's no reason why we can't work in the rain.
There you go.
Yeah, you just get wet.
Right.
you know?
Exactly. We have a
It's all right.
dryer.
Right.
That's right.
Other questions for
No,
Fred?
I think I'm
Good.
good.
Oh, good.
Thank you very much for coming in. Even though you were called away for a little bit, still making the meeting is appreciated, so.
Yeah.
And thanks for your help over the past couple of weeks, too.
Yeah.
I know that you were quite busy. I saw you going up Lyman in the front loader, I'm assuming moving rocks to get fire in, and
Oh, yeah, it was
everything
a busy
else, so
weekend.
appreciate you.
Yeah, it was busy.
Yep, he's keeping an eye down on the courts as well, so.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, so we
Keep-
had a
keeping you a
little
little
incident
busy.
here today.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
that's
no.
right.
So when the grinder was trying to turn around, he drove over the anchor for a guy wire. Didn't notice it until he snapped the pole. So we got a telephone pole broken that now we're working on getting repaired.
Hmm.
Their cost?
There it
Oh,
goes.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So I spoke with them this morning, actually later this afternoon, and we did. We actually got to find out how much does the telephone pole cost.
Right.
Yeah,
Ooh.
especially in that location and,
Yeah, that'll be hard to get back to.
right,
Because it was behind the basketball area.
Oh, so by the pond?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. Which, so it may not need
There's
to
a
be
chance to
replaced,
fix it.
but we will still
Yeah,
seek
yeah.
damages
Right, right.
regardless,
Mhm.
in case we need to do something else
Yep,
over
yep.
there, so.
So,
Well, at least it didn't happen during the fishing derby, so.
yeah, no.
Or when they just had fresh they had just paved the asphalt down on the courts and the pole fell on it. That's good.
Yeah.
But it's coming out nice.
Good.
Good. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it looks
Yep.
good.
Well, thank you.
Nice to see you, Fred.
Yes.
It is always nice to
Sorry,
see
nice
you,
to
it
know
is.
Let's see, in our jumping around, I have to remember what we've done and not done. Let's hit a Historic Commission artifact storage request. They have sent us a letter. Do you want to take it?
I sure can. So I had submitted a request to the Historic Commission. There are some items in the unfinished attic above the public safety side of this building, which is just insulation and doesn't have proper flooring. So it had been brought to my attention that there were some items stored up there, and it's not safe for the protection or preservation of the items or to have people walking up there. We don't want anyone to get injured. That's a liability because that is literally like somebody's unfinished attic in their house. So I gave them a time frame to remove it, and what's going on is I suggested they move it to Village Power, but they are full down at Village Power. So they are asking that the materials be moved to the former fire station. I recommend against that because we have a leaking roof, unfortunately, and it's not a heated space. I don't know if those items have to be heated, but we also are doing a facilities study coming up, and it's a little difficult as it is to walk around that building. So we're trying to keep the buildings free of items so that we're able to maneuver around the buildings and be able to do that facilities study. I think I sat down, had a great conversation with one of the members of the Historical Commission about some options for going through items, paring things down, perhaps working with some other historical commissions in other towns for items that don't relate specifically to Berlin, perhaps doing an article to bring a curator temporarily on board to assist with that, because I understand this is a volunteer committee. We can't expect them to take this all on themselves. Working on items that we can dispose of that are determined to not have a value or a tie. Because I think we have to look at the fact that as people move out of their homes, pass away, etc., there's going to continue to be historical items that are located in town. So we need a long-term comprehensive solution for where we're going to store things, and whether that's a second curatorial building, I'm not sure. Barry and I have talked a lot about different ideas on that, but I just do have significant concerns about the firehouse as well as the items that are up in the attic. So I wish I had a really great solution. Peg has been helping clean out some spaces over at 1870, but we don't have a lot of, I think you cleaned a closet. We're trying to go through things to the extent that we can and find space. I genuinely appreciate the commission reaching out this way. What we had requested is if folks are needing storage, that they reach out to the select board, town administrator, and speak with us. So I'm putting it forward to see if you all have any other thoughts, maybe buildings I don't know about, places I'm not aware of, as I am still relatively new, that could assist in resolving this problem.
I want to piggyback on your comment about it's not safe over there. It's also not safe on that second floor, because the last time I was up there doing an inventory, that door, and maybe or Fred, maybe that door to go out on the stairs, it's warped. You can't open it. So there's no egress out of that building. So if you can't get down those stairs.
Oh, you mean at the fire?
At the fire
house?
station, if you can't get down those stairs that you came in, you can't get out that door. That door is warped. It will not open. And I don't know the last time that someone actually stood on that staircase. I'm not volunteering to do it. So,
I have last year.
yeah.
Like I say, I think I've been there the last year.
Yeah. So I have a safety concern that
Probably historical.
if there's not two ways to get out of that building on the second floor, then no one should be going up there to store any items. Whether it's Lions, whether it's Boy Scouts. So that's my safety concern about that. You had also made a comment about that it doesn't relate to Berlin. I had reached out to help the commission. I had reached out to neighboring towns, and they had started, Hudson specifically, had started a form that when people drop stuff off, they said, "Hi, I'd like to drop stuff off." And you'd say, "Hi, my name's Chris Keefe, and I'm dropping off insert item here. This is the historical value, meaning to the town. This is how I can prove it's a historical meaning to the town." And if you couldn't, they didn't accept the item. It was done. They just didn't take it, because Hudson was saying that they literally have a room of hats. The people said, "This is my grandfather's hat. My grandfather lived here 85 years ago. He had a hat that he wore all the time, so I'd like to give it to you because it's a historical hat." So there's that I proposed to them.
To who?
To
Historical Commission.
historical.
Okay.
to say, hey, here's an idea of what other towns are doing, because Berlin's not alone, for space. No one has space for
Mhm.
people to drop stuff off. So that's what Hudson was trying to do, to weed down on the, here, take this hat type of thing. Because along with the value of it, if you look at the inventory that Historical had provided, they have a map of Martha's Vineyard. And I realize that a map doesn't take up a lot of room. But what's the historical significance to the town, along with painted bricks, a pool table, a milk can that's painted red, a lantern with broken glass, a damaged Victorian chair, a damaged bookcase. So I have concerns about, are people just saying, hey, I am moving?
I don't think Historical has accepted much in the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, that they have been not only not accepting much, but they've been actively getting rid of stuff. There's been several runs that Highway has done from the Bullet House to the transfer station. They held a yard sale where they got rid of, well, they raised $1,000 at the yard sale where people were just naming their prices for things. And I just, so, I mean, I think they're going the right direction, but it doesn't change the fact that there is more things than there is space. And as I talked to you, Kristen, I get uncomfortable when it's an us, them sort of thing. These are town of Berlin owned things. The town of Berlin should be figuring out where to store it. So asking them to find a space when it's our items, I think it's on us to find a space for it if we want to keep it. The Historical Commission is advisory to us. And I agree, I don't think there's a space right now. I would love to have had the real estate study done and some better stuff, but until then, I don't know, like, they don't go up into the second floor. The stuff up there is stuff that was put there and has not been sort of touched since. There's no plan on touching it again until it has moved somewhere else. And so I think things stay where I would have things stay where they're at until we've finished our real estate study, and that we say, here's a place to put it. Because I volunteered several times moving it from a place where the select board has told them to move it from point to the upper stairs of the fire department, and I've spent a weekend helping putting it the upstairs of that building. And I've spent time, and it just feels weird that it whims every now and then. We're like, no, you can't put it here now, put it over here. And they're just spending so much time just moving from space to space.
I know, but I guess I have issues with items just suddenly appearing. I mean, you had sent out a directive to stop bringing things to buildings without your permission.
Well, the mysterious appearance of things.
Yes.
Right.
But, so after you had that directive, it was a couple Wednesdays ago, the Wednesday we met with FinCom, that went on forever. I happened to drive by the firehouse. The door was open. There was a car in the parking lot. The trunk was open, and there were items being walked in. And I told you about it that night. So it's like, here's a directive. Don't, but okay. You listen to meetings that they have, and comments will bring architectural items to the fire station. Some of the items are society stuff. I'll just flip them over to the fire station. So I'd like to ask you, that we just change the lock on that door. That you get a copy, you get a copy, you get a copy. Fire Deputy Marshal, he gets a copy, and then that's it. So there's no, let me just open the door and throw something in and no one will notice for that. That's the way to stop it, and stop it now. And if you have to go in there, just like we'd make an appointment to talk to you, or you, or you, they make an appointment to say, I have to go into the building for blah, blah, blah. But I would like the fire marshal to comment on that door. Granted, knock wood, hope to God nothing happens, but I'm thinking by building code, you need 2 ways to get out of a building. And right now you only have one, unless you're kicking the door open. And I can't see the town spending any money or any of your time to go up and replace the door for that.
I don't know what
All
other
the
door
more
you're
reason not to
talking
go up there and
about.
remove things, or go up there and add more things to it.
So when you go
I've gone in before.
go in, so go up the stairs.
Yeah.
Right? And when you walk in, the Boy Scouts area is here.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you turn left, that's where there's like the old kitchen
Yeah.
and a bathroom. And right there is the door. So if you're looking at the fire station this
So
way.
if you would go through that door, where would you be?
The
Out on the
stairway.
s- out on the stairs on the
metal
outside of the building.
fire
On the
escape.
other side?
Yeah, on
Okay,
the
I
other
didn't
side.
go that far.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Probably
So-
because
And it's
get the
been,
door open.
right. Well, it's been the metal staircase that generally is the easier way to get things up there to store them, so.
Right.
So that's a concern that I
Yeah.
have.
And so what should we do with this list of items that are both upstairs now and in other places? Because the items we have now are the items we have now, so that has nothing to do with whether or not they're accepting anything new. It has nothing to do with, just, it exists. And so if we don't have another place to put it, then to me,
Is-
it should just stay where it's at.
Is there
It's a
anything
bad
on
place
that,
now.
on that list that could be eliminated?
Probably.
Well, yeah, I mean, so can
Well,
they
it's kind of
justify?
easy to look at
But
that
that
list.
requires someone, but then someone is going up there and going up there multiple times as opposed to just letting it sit there until all 40 items on this list having a home somewhere else, so they all permanently go away. And it's sort of one afternoon, evening supervised to make sure things are done safely and not having people up there and out of there many times over the next 6 months.
Are you talking up there?
Yeah, the items they said were upstairs
Oh, yeah.
in this building.
I didn't even realize there were 40 until I saw that
Right.
list. I guess I just have concerns that we tried to put a process in place and it's not being followed. And I have personally seen items that I know do not have historic value. They're rotted, they're paint cans, they're, metal
And
desks with
accepted by a
acorns.
vote of the commission or an individual person who's just dropping things off. Because we have to make the distinction that there are people in town who just drop things off in places and just assume that it's historical and will take it on. And
Oh,
not
sure.
necessarily a vote of the commission to accept more items.
Right, and that's why, the last time all those desks with the acorns in them showed up, I just sent out a generic email. I'm not trying to
Right,
blame
right.
anybody for
Right.
doing it, and it, was the historical commission. So, or the cemetery commission, sorry. So I'm really just trying to get a handle on items coming into buildings. It's not any particular, one committee or another, and I want to help. I recognize that there is a need for assistance for that committee, and I've really tried to put my thinking cap on and say, well, what can we do? Can we figure out what to do? I mean, do we have sometimes something where there's 150 of something and maybe we only need 2, or something of that nature? So that's all I'm trying to get at. Can we help pare it down? Because otherwise this is just going to become an enormous space issue over time.
Yeah, because there was an open meeting that they had on Friday. There's a building on Central Street next to the old Egan's house there that they had deemed was worth of historical value. And they said to the owner, oh, when you clean it, we'll just go through it and take pictures and take what we want. And in my head, I could hear it going, where are you putting this stuff? Because there was discussion of, oh, we'll just take the fireplace mantle. Thinking, well, that's an odd thing to take, but I'm not a historian, so I couldn't tell you. So again, it's just as they're taking items, because if you look, they're constantly looking at houses that are being, either demolished or cleaned out, and they're taking these items. Where are they going? Where are they mysteriously showing up?
Well, and how are we determining what's of historic value? And I like the form kind of idea, or, how do we kind of put that in a form where other people can help if we do senior work off, or we get other folks involved that can kind of help look at items and say, oh yeah, that's definitely tied to Berlin. We should be keeping that 100%. I just don't know that we should be holding on to buildings just for storage either. And I don't know what the facility study is going to show. But my guess is they're going to say, if you're not using buildings for active use, you should get rid of them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like the idea of paring down, or maybe even no more until, no more, do not take any more items until, you have the space.
I
But-
just would hate for something really important to crop up that they wouldn't have the ability
I know,
to take.
I
So
know.
But then that's a request to you and to us.
Sure.
To say, hey, we have this
Mantle,
mantle that has historical value of blah, blah, blah. Can we? And then we can say, sure, bring it into the town building, or no, absolutely not. You've brought in 85 other things. You're done.
don't we already have a process for people who want to donate things to the town, when people want to donate a sign or a truck or a rototiller or
We have to-
you know,
we as a board
we as a board
accept.
have to accept them. And I don't know, potentially historical might not, we should make sure historical is not an exception to that, is to accept something as town property. It has to be accepted by the select board. And it might add a few more
Mhm.
meetings to us, but I think it gets to some of the core things you're talking about.
Right.
And doesn't necessarily, hamstring them if something really great came along. You know, the first, I don't know, X in the town, you know, found some original shoes from the shoe shop that was in the town or center, and we could take those in.
I think that, if I'm not mistaken, I'll have to look back, but I think it was a 1970s town meeting that granted Historical Commission authority over all historical
Yeah.
articles. So that's part of
Yep.
the issue as well.
Yep. I mean, because part of the problem too is that they've locked off Memorial Hall, at Town Hall, with more of their items, which has, you're thinking, well, so what, it's a room. But they've locked it off, which meant that the auxiliary women couldn't meet there, which meant that their items that they had to meetings couldn't be stored there. So they had to bring them to a house to bring them back to a meeting, which caused an email to Kristen, I know, follow,
Right.
which caused an email to Kristen and Conservation to say, in room 226, can we literally bend over, pick up the box off the floor, put it onto the shelf up here, repeat 3 or 4 times, so it opened up this space for the auxiliary women to meet.
Right.
Right, but some of that's also because Boiler House is under construction. A lot of stuff they've kept in there, they can't keep in there anymore.
Yeah, so, but it's, again,
Which also
it's-
means when they're done, they're not putting all that stuff back either, because hopefully that turns into usable space that has a chunk of items back, but not all the items. they
Which
have
is
to.
that long-term solution for
Right.
collections, because I imagine they're gonna rotate items through, so.
and they've talked about coming up with some sort of theme, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make a grand assumption that when everything is done, they have the Bullet House and they have the Cutorial House. That's it. They
Oh.
don't have any more space in town, or they shouldn't have any more space in town for their items.
I believe they're going to, because if you're displaying things in the Bullard House, the curator is not going to be enough to store it. There's a, 1940s fire truck that is not going to fit in those 2 places. There's the apparatus from the 1929s. There's a giant bobsled that is from the same sort of, they have several larger items that just are not ever going to fit in those 2 places that we will need storage for if we as a town are going to continue to keep them.
And that's something
Yeah.
that perhaps is a joint meeting that we need to discuss, because it's,
Right, those fire trucks, I would say, are collectible. I'm not saying we necessarily should get rid of them, but there are people
Well-
like locally that collect. I mean, it's a
And
discussion.
apparently the ownership of that fire truck
Yeah, it is still under
de-
discussion.
is
Oh.
debatable within town about.
okay.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
know
The
that.
historic
Yes.
itself does not, it does not claim ownership of
Oh,
that truck.
I didn't mean
Yeah.
to open a can of worms.
No.
Okay.
It is a can of worms that someday will have to be opened, because I think
Mhm.
the group that wanted to keep it, to restore it, it might not actually be active or exist
No.
anymore, and so.
Right,
Right.
okay.
so you have a fire truck in a building that no one has access to, that continues
Right.
to rot and rust.
And although you and I disagree on a bunch of things related to stuff, I think potentially changing the locks of that building is something I have no problem getting behind.
Okay.
I also I have no problem getting behind, and that just generally, as town administrator, if something shows up in this town somewhere, just randomly shows that no one has taken, get rid of it. You know, I mean, Goodwill has this problem all the time. The food pantry has this problem. You know, the people just drop things off. They think, let's assume good intent that they think is, you know, because their grandfather wore it for 50 years, it is the most important thing that the town could have, but that really doesn't.
Right.
And that you just, sadly, we spend some money disposing of some things.
Well,
I mean,
and
it's
that
sad
was
the food
the-
pantry spends money disposing of food that just
Right.
can't be given to people, and it's just,
And that was the way that I approached those items, the desk items that
Yep.
were, I said, well,
Yep.
you know, if they're not picked up by X date, we will
Yep.
take them to the transfer station. However, we now have to have a future conversation, by the way, about items that are brought by town departments to the transfer station, because that's costing
Right.
a lot of money for
Yeah.
them to dispose of.
Yeah.
So that, you know, it prompts new questions, but we'll get there.
yeah.
Summer project. It's the list.
got a lot of
The,
summer
I was going to say the list grows. I think it's going in
After
the
town
fall.
meeting, after town meeting. This is usually, but like March or so, you start like, after town meeting, we'll get to that. After
yeah.
town meeting, we'll get to that.
Yeah, exactly.
Sadly, that's gonna come up in like 2 or 3 weeks, and so we'll start getting to all
Next
the
week.
after town meeting
Sure,
things.
get it
Yeah.
all done next week.
Is there a motion to be had in this mess?
I'll make the motion to change the locks on the door effective immediately with 4 keys only to be held by the town administrator, highway guy, police chief guy, and fire marshal. And that's it.
We don't have a fire marshal. It's not his title.
All right.
So what do we do as your
The
motion?
lieutenant.
All right, so
Right,
then
fire
how about
inspector.
fire chief?
Right.
It doesn't- I just-
Somebody.
Or designate.
Or
Yeah,
designated.
all right,
Yeah.
but then, but
Um,
that's it, just 4 keys.
Just, I want it done post haste. I don't know immediately, like at the end
Oh,
of this
correct,
meeting.
well,
that Fred
correct,
should run
yes,
out
Fred,
and
you need
change
to go out to
locks.
Lowe's, I think they're open until 9. Here's $20, go get 4 keys.
We're all pitching in here.
That's right, wait a minute, I got some money.
Oh,
Don't,
okay.
don't joke about that, because he will go.
I know.
Our locksmith
Just
can
fill
put a
the-
key on that,
it's
so that
all
my
right
key
now.
for all the building will work on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
however,
so the logistics, I think you can
Yes.
figure out, because people are better than that than, I think, the three of us.
One
But
another key.
you get the intent is to restrict that building,
As time
especially,
permits.
I mean, I think even, as you point out, from a fire standpoint, we don't want people in it.
nope. There's
I
a
don't
box
think-
in the back of the building, did you notice it? It's a brown box and it has like tables in it. It was there no, it was there over the weekend.
Where's this?
In the back of the fire station, there was a cardboard box, and I was grumbling because it was Earth Day, and I was saying not nice things, and I was just gonna take the cardboard down to the transfer station. It's an unopened box of tables, like small tables. So you might wanna take a look. I don't know how it got there. It's in the back of the building. Maybe it's disappeared since Saturday, don't know, but it was there.
I'm gonna go home that way.
Not tonight.
Okay, so you made the motion.
For the lock.
Yes.
Or
and I
changing
will-
of the
I
lock.
will second that.
Okay.
I think especially on that, we've had enough conversation.
Yep.
I think we're ready to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There we go.
I think you do have to pay attention to whether things are being added to the location, specifically up here right now.
Well, I'm actually wondering if that door shouldn't be locked to the upstairs as well, because people, I believe, could fall through that or could go through that insulation, no?
Easily.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
easily, right in our station.
Yeah.
Can we put a lock on that door too?
I'm sure we can probably find one. We'll take one of the ones out there and put it on.
I'm legitimately concerned about injury. I'm
Yeah, yeah,
really,
yeah.
that's
Well, it's
where I'm
probably
coming
not a
from.
good idea to have an unlocked door that doesn't really have a floor.
Right, yeah.
Well, it
You know,
has
what
a
if a
little,
kid
it
gets
has a
in there?
little floor.
Yeah, it's again, like a lot of people's unfinished attics, there's some strategically placed boards that you
Correct, that you
can
need to step
make some
on.
walking on.
Yeah, but a
and-
kid isn't gonna know.
I was gonna say
No,
some kid playing in the
maybe
insulation
some
is
adult
not
who's
a
half
good
paying
idea.
attention to like the stuff in there, they're looking for something to pull out of up there that could happen.
Right, it's also a machine room, so there are there is very expensive
Right.
equipment in there that we don't want people touching.
And
Okay,
I
so buy
believe,
five locks? A lock. And
Lots of duct tape.
I also think that there's probably some storage space in some buildings. I'm reluctant to offer just because moving things around doesn't, again, get to the core of reducing the total stuff. And so I really think until we have a better solution, I'd really rather things not
Not move.
move.
Okay.
Do we give them a date, though?
Date for what?
Go through the items, get rid of your pool table, milk can with red
They
paint.
potentially have a couple 100,000 items.
I understand that,
Right.
but if you want the items stored over there, then you've gotta do
Right.
something about,
I
you
mean, I
know.
think part of it is when we move it, it's like things move that you can prove
Right.
have good value and fit potentially. Again, we worked with them, Margaret worked with them at one point trying to come up with an acceptance policy, like what are the type of things we should have in the
Yeah.
collection?
Right.
And I think it is working towards something like that. I thought they were fairly close on it. I think it got distracted when they started spending a lot more time on making sure they make the grant deadline. Because I thought I saw
Oh, for the
some
MHC
drafts that got
grant.
relatively close. And because I thought they've also been using it to do some of the research, because things like cans of paint, I've been used in some of the examples of things that
Yeah.
have gotten, where it's like, why do we have this can of paint? We don't know what it went to. It doesn't seem to be some sort of historic color. It wasn't, a color made by some Berlin resident.
And I have concerns too. I mean, it's like some of the stuff that's up at the top of the fire station, they're old doors and they're door jambs.
Yep.
That paint on those doors, I'm gonna assume, was probably full of lead.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't know if it has mold or any
But-
other termite type
Termites.
of thing,
Termites.
so
They,
you move items
they're
and
actually
something
labeled on
choose
most of them. Yeah, those doors and actually even, what was the mantle pieces? Those are things that are used in town sometimes to other places that are homes that are of the same style that need to try to stay historic the best they can. I think you could easily debate what's the
Mhm.
right number of doors to
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, but is it
And if anyone,
historical's responsibility to
Well-
collect doors for that purpose?
in some
No.
respects, if they're trying to make sure the Bullard house is as authentic as possible, collecting doors that are from the right generation and about the right shape
Well, probably don't
could follow
need
it.
that many doors, though.
Again, the amount you can have is debatable, because officially, if you've ever looked at historic buildings, every door is a slightly different
Mhm.
size and a different
Yeah.
weight and a different type of wood and a.
Lay them down on the attic
yeah,
floor.
you can lay 'em on the attic
More
floor,
That's
they
right,
come
so
before
that,
the
so
attic,
that there would be safety.
Repurpose the
That's
Right,
stores
there'd be
at the
safety, so
same
you could
time.
walk across the
I don't
floor.
pretend to be a historic expert. I know that some things up there I am. I would go, boy, I'm really glad we've kept that, and other things I agree are like, I don't know.
Have no idea.
Again, they did get rid of a serious chunk of things at the yard sale. They have pointed out in conversations that one of the yard sales from a set collection have diminishing returns, and over the years they've now had 2 or 3 of them, and so they might be the point where more yard sales would not get them a significant number of items, unless, of course, they've changed the policy and add to the collection. And there doesn't seem to be a great agreement among them on process of, there are 5 members of the Historic Commission, and, they really try to do everything under a consensus. And so what do you do when 4 people think it should go and 1 person really thinks it should stay? Or again, 3 people think it should
There
go
has to
and
be
2
a
people.
vote.
And they really try to do everything by set consensus and
I
not
know, but sometimes
sort
you
of
can't do
trample
that.
on people who might have a
Because
minority opinion.
someone's always gonna, be in the minority.
Yep.
That's just the way it has to be.
And it's not always the same people. There are some people like,
Well, if it's
I
a
want to
priority.
keep all the irons, and someone else says, no, we should get rid of all the irons. Someone else says, I want to keep all the clothing, and the person who wants to keep all the irons is fine to get rid of all the clothing, as an example. And so trying to get sort of
Maybe
full
that
consensus.
list of what is a
Yeah.
priority,
Oh, yeah.
that needs to happen.
It's always like, if they can get the grant out the door,
Yeah.
they can focus a little bit more on a few other things. So that, again, with the group that's helping with the Hearst House, so that's not sort of the big focus. They can get on stuff. They have started doing some more of the photography, because they got the money to do some photography of stuff. They were trying to figure out a way to get it on the town website, and since web and public social media is not the strong point of that team. They were looking for some houses for that. I encourage them, I think, to reach out, because
Yes, and there's a
I do IT
gentleman
stuff, but web
who's-
stuff is not my thing either.
They got a senior worker, I
Yep,
believe,
yep.
who's already reached out. We've gotten him access to save things on the
Yep.
shared drive and access to use a computer here, so
Nice.
working on it.
Okay.
So I think it's something still to watch.
Yeah.
And then the facility study, is there a sense that wasn't necessarily on your report, and I didn't ask you to prep for it, but where is that at? Do you have a sense of timing?
Summer project.
Summer project, after town meeting. After town meeting.
No, it is. So basically, what I'm doing right now with regards to procurement is I'm wrapping up the cable. Then I need to put the roof out. The
Mhm.
roof
Yep.
leaked again outside of my office even today, which shouldn't be leaking anywhere. And then the facility study is next after that. So it's third on the list. But the first on the list is almost done. So
All right, so we're in agreement on locks on the door.
Mhm.
We're agreement that door somehow
Mhm.
doesn't have entry.
Mhm.
I'm assuming you're gonna send a note to them to tell them
I
that this
would be.
is.
Well, I don't know, do we have to?
Well, tell them that.
No, I was looking at
where
her.
in some respects, I think we've gone from asking to move things to telling them not to move things and not to go where the things are even sitting right now. That's generally going to be
Well,
sort
we're
of
gonna
secured
have
off
to-
until we have a better spot to put
They'll
them.
have to come to the
Yep.
town administrator's
Yep.
office if they need to get up there for something.
Correct, they'll have to make an appointment.
Yes,
And they're
that's
not
all.
doing a lot of programming right now, because again, they're working on the grants. They shouldn't need to go up there into either build space
Mhm.
to get things.
So I'll just let them know that,
Yep.
they don't have to move it, but they'll come
But the access
see
is
us
gonna be
if they
limited,
need to
yeah.
get in there.
That gets to at least some of the safety concerns.
Sure.
Doesn't solve the storage concerns, but solves some of the safety concerns.
I mean, I would like for them to come to us, because I would like to get an idea of what their plans are. I mean, if you listen to their meetings, they talk about, oh, we need to have a mission, we need to have a vision of what we want the collection to be, and then follow the conversation, and then it starts at the next meeting, and then it
Isn't-
starts at the
it's-
next meeting.
it's
That
not
there,
getting
it's
anywhere.
not, we're
Yeah.
going to have a house that focuses on black pants, and that's all we're going to show is black pants. I think if you did
I
that.
could donate.
I think if you did that, then that would help to cut down what's coming in there. But just the magical showing up of items has to stop
Mhm.
because, you're impacting rec, you're impacting the auxiliary women, you're impacting a group that's meeting and paying rental fees at 1870 that they would like more room, but there's no more room to be had. So you have all these other
Mhm.
off-site groups
Well, it might be
that-
better to have one area, one place, like the firehouse, but it doesn't have a roof yet.
Yeah,
But
and-
just instead of having it here and there,
Mhm.
and just have
They would
one
love that too.
place.
Do you think the Curado Storage House is full?
But
Village Power is full.
I get the feeling,
the-
though, that no matter what happens in the future, near
Mhm.
future,
Mhm.
they're going to continue to take things, though, and
Mhm.
there will always need more space.
And you can't put them on the bottom floor of the fire station because Fred has his little truck in there that was in there. Your little John Deere, that's in there.
Right.
And then on the other side is the rusting.
Well, the only place is the upstairs, then that's not a good
No.
No.
good
No,
place.
when we do the facility study, I imagine that we're going to find a building where it's potentially not optimal for storage, but probably doesn't have a lot of commercial value anywhere else, like potentially the firehouse, that we should spend some money to turn it into something that's better for storage. Because it has that giant high ceiling, you could turn into 3 stories of something, and a dumbwaiter type thing to get things up to there, or, that's what's where to look at some of these things, is that we have storage, because storage is not necessarily a problem just for the historic commission. Highway has things stored in 15 different places all around town too, despite the fact that town spent $4.5 million on a building that was going to be the one place they could store everything. But then the select board, changed the size of the building. We didn't have enough money because materials went higher, and so it didn't include all the things
Right.
that we thought was going to be there, so they could have one space. So, it's not just historical that is taking up
Well, a
space.
town needs storage.
Right.
Yeah.
But the problem is too, is that some of the items, need to be in a temperature-controlled environment, and I know that they were originally asking for that oil tank to be filled in the fire station, and I'm like,
I know.
no.
And not everything needs a temperature control.
You'll help people in town who
Right.
need oil before you'll
Yeah,
heat
yeah.
that building there, so
Yeah.
we're trying to give,
I
they
think
need to
if we're
give
going
as
to have
well.
a meeting with them, though, it's going to have to be, this is what we're going to talk about.
Yes.
We're going to stick to the subject. We're not going to bicker back and forth.
And go into a history lesson
Right.
of, correct.
No, it's not going to get anywhere. We're not going to
No.
make any progress. So that would be my suggestion if we're going to invite them to a meeting.
Agreed. And before summer, before we start swinging into every other week.
Well, if we're going to do it.
I don't
But
have
would
a
you like 3
before
meetings?
summer
2
projects
meetings.
list.
Oh, geez.
I only
This
have
is
a summer
before right
projects
now.
list.
That's right, 'cause
Town
we
meeting,
do in
that
May.
is before
Right.
summer.
We meet
That's
on the
true.
15th
We use
and
3 in May.
22nd.
Summer.
Right,
Ah.
the first 15th and 22nd to be
We
honest
lose.
with me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So,
So you got
Okay.
that?
We got some of that. They can watch some of this too,
Yep.
to know what's going on.
They'll
I'll-
just
I'll
get
talk-
angry.
I'll
Send
talk
them
to
and
June as well.
I'll reach out to them.
And
I
if we
wasn't attending
find-
more of their meetings until they didn't, they meet during the daytime, and it's just hard for me to get to those.
Yeah.
And
And
they
if
were
they
Zoom.
bring-
And if they bring
videotaped?
stuff in and we find that they bring stuff in, it goes right back out?
I think it's bigger than just them. I think as a whole, if things show up that are not expected to be showed up, that they should go out.
Yep. Kristen, maybe you need to
And I
send
don't know, I
the,
don't know how we find if it's a 1970s motion that limits, like, where there are exception to the donation policy of town.
maybe it
how
was
we
I
more
find
saw it.
specific.
I saw it. Mary, I
Mary
think you
has
had
it.
found it?
What?
The historical commission,
Oh.
ownership of
Yeah.
historical artifacts.
Well, ownership,
We
but
have
that,
it.
but
No,
still.
it's not ownership, it's like care and custody of, but
Care-
not ownership.
What, but Karen Custody is still not whether or not to accept them. It still could accept them, just like we accept other donations, should be the purview of the select board.
Okay.
We have to vote on accepting land, again, we vote on accepting other things, we should.
You're going to have to take pictures of these areas where things are stored to see whether anything's added. I wouldn't know.
Well, there's a Google
That's no
Drive.
problem.
I mean, and I have, Mary provided a
No,
Google Drive, but
if another
not,
box showed up in the upstairs of the
I'm not gonna-
firehouse, like, how would we know? But that's why we're trying to stop it by potentially
Yeah.
changing some locks and,
Yeah.
Having,
know.
having a conversation might
Yeah.
be a good
Yeah.
idea, but I was going to say maybe our TA needs to have the conversation, or a letter.
Sure.
yeah,
Or a
well,
letter.
conversation with June,
yeah.
Yep.
You know, not any of the other members, but June is the chair of that board, so she needs to hear the message, and then she needs to disseminate it to the group.
Right.
Okay. I did not even realize she was the chair.
Right, and yeah, she is the chair.
Yeah.
And she's the one who helped
Well, at least
organize
for the time being, I don't know when and if
the
they
yard
vote
sale
again for
and
the chair.
worked with Fred to have several truckloads worth of stuff removed and to the transfer station. And probably a large volume of items, but not a large volume of physical space, because we have some big items that take up a couple of.
Well, that's just it, and there's not a lot of room up on the second floor.
Yeah.
I did my measurements. There's not a lot of room up there, so if you're looking for square footage of what's available
Yeah.
versus the square footage of what's needed up there,
Right.
it's not gonna match.
Right.
So then what do you do with leftover items?
My office.
No.
Got a little space on the back counter.
All
We'll
right.
make it work.
We got one more thing on
We
the
have one more
agenda.
thing on the agenda. We have the big item on the agenda potentially, but, so it is that time of year to review our town administrator. It is one of those things we like doing this time of year, mostly because it's going into the town meeting and town election. There can be some changes on select board after elections, and so to make sure there is some sort of continuity from one to the next, serve as a review. And so what we have done is invited department heads and ourselves to forward to me some comments and feelings. It was on a form. Some people stuck to the form. Some people did it free form. I was fine with it. I got about a dozen responses for it. I acknowledged towards the end, as I was writing this up last week, that one of the things that I should have done and didn't is ask Kristen to do a self-evaluation so that I would have a sense, as I'm writing this, how much she is in touch with what she thinks her strengths and weaknesses are to the town. And we probably could have done it better, because we sent it to department heads to tell them, but sending it out to a broader audience. I didn't mean to limit it to department heads. I think if anybody had any feedback, they could have gladly gotten it to me and I would have incorporated it in.
And as I used to tell people when they would complain about not being able to give feedback to
Right.
a school superintendent,
Mhm.
you can give us feedback any time of year.
Right? Right.
Any time of year.
As our inboxes show. But yes, feedback specifically on the town meeting. And I don't want to, I have was it 2 pages it came to? 2 or 3 pages? 2
Well,
pages it
I
came to?
wonder if you want to just
and I
read
don't-
the.
Right. But as you say, I'm not going to read sort of all the comments. I was going to say that for the most part in the draft that I have here, mostly for people to understand that to not violate any open meeting laws, although I assembled everything put together, Chris Pegg and I have not had a chance to talk about, to make sure the three of us are have the same opinion on things, although I did have their feedbacks and hopefully have incorporated your comments in this well.
Can I just ask you? So, we haven't seen, at least I don't think Peg has seen, the department head feedback.
No, I hadn't sent out. It didn't occur to me to potentially send those out as well. I have no problem sharing you the
Okay.
the stuff.
Okay,
the
and I
individual
didn't
stuff.
know how you, did you incorporate their numbers in with ours, or just
Yes,
ours?
the document I put in is a compilation of both your feedback and the feedbacks that I got from department heads.
Okay.
So it's all merged in together, and actually, in the document that's currently in draft form, I have done my best to, almost in some respects, copy and paste word for word what some people is. I've made a couple adjustments, so it's not always obvious, like who wrote it, because the idea was to try to leave some anonymity. Although I must say, even between what you folks wrote, what I had written in theirs, that there is a lot of similarity across it from top to bottom. Kristen's been here just 6 months, and so we're not exactly doing a full year review.
Right.
She's not been here years, and so and got thrown into the thick of things. The transition from Margaret to Kristen wasn't sort of planned ahead of time. Margaret had the health issues and then left earlier than she wanted to, and we then jump into budget season in your
6th week.
Yeah, it's third or fourth weekend. And so, as a whole, I think people that gave good marks there, everything on people who did put in scores, the scores were on a 1 to 5 in a variety of areas. There were no 1s or 2s. Everything's were 3, 4s, and 5s. The areas that came out with the highest score were decision making and fiscal issues, which seems to track well with what you did with the budget season, and especially a challenging budget season with all the increases that are coming from outside contractors and trying to find an arrangement with the schools. So the fact that those two came out high is not necessarily a big surprise. So overall, the ratings averaged about pretty much dead on a 4 across, with the amount of 3s equaling the amount of 5s. As I said, there's no 1 or 2s. And now this is far enough away with these glasses that I'm going to have to get closer to my screen to see the rest of it. That you've learned a lot in your 6 months here. You've gotten up to speed quickly with minimal missteps. Everyone has had a favorable impression so far. As I said, the first 6 months have mainly been reactive to unfinished business, required hires, the budget, procurements. People are quite pleased with what they've seen so far. And I couldn't find the right word. I struggled with this, sort of the cautiously optimistic and looking forward to what you can do more in the next and coming future. That there's a feeling that you, because it's been reactionary, because it's jumping around in the budget, that your sort of stamp and style really hasn't had a chance to percolate through the town yet. I think people are pleased with what they see. I think they think things are going to go well. The only thing that comes to mind is the jury is still out, but that makes it seem like, you know, we're torn about whether or not we think you're a good add to town. I think you have done a lot decently for the town. And I'll let you guys add some comments there. I'm going to get into some of the opportunities for improvement.
No, I'm good. I mean, everything that I wanted to say, I passed
Yep.
to you, so.
And hopefully you saw them in
A few.
this. Yep, yep. Even when I do reviews at work, I spend most of the time, you spend most of the time in reviews on like opportunities for improvement, only because, you know, the great things are great and the opportunities for improvement are the place that this does not reflect, like, if I spend half my time talking to you about things that I think we can do some more improvements on, does not mean that I think you're, you know, half good and half bad. I've greatly enjoyed working with you. You know, you and I for the last 6 months have been doing agenda setting and preparing the meeting, and I greatly enjoyed working on it to give you. I'm definitely gonna miss it as we do our rotation of chair in a couple of weeks. So now I have to get back close to my screen again, because of course, you know. I think a couple of them focus a little bit on that sort of work-life balance sort of stuff. A town administrator's job is never done. People definitely appreciate that you're available 24/7, have been able to do things at night. I think that the counter of that is not everything needs to be responded to at night. I can speak from experience. I've sometimes sent non-urgent emails at 9 or 10 at night because that's when I'm coming down from my work and doing my town stuff, that I do get a response like 20 or 30 minutes later that I'm expecting a response like the next afternoon or something on, and trying to figure that some of that out. I think it is every now and then need to say that you're overloaded and need assistance, and trying to rely more even on sometimes on your team. I think you've done some decent job of relating to your team is also new in some places. And so figuring out, and again, the work line for you and them is out there as well. I think we even, in an article tonight, being more mindful of the distinction between the actions of a committee and the actions or suggestions of an individual, and sort of who are the chairs of committees versus people who might have longer tenure on something but aren't necessarily the chair, and understanding some of the distinctions for those. And something that came up earlier in the year that we've seen it a couple of times is trying to figure out, and I said this one is mostly working with us as well, there are some oddities to the structure of town, where there are town employees that don't report through you or to you or to the select board, and how you provide personnel support, because you are the personnel director in that direction, but you're not their supervisor, or tell them what they can and can't be doing. And that is not only just true for some town employees, there are some town elected bodies and committees that don't report through the select board. If we had, I don't want to use any real examples, but you know, if we had the house painting elected body in town, you know, that suddenly decided that they only want to hire people of one gender, and they openly say that, they put that in job ads, you know, you should tell them quite strongly that that is not allowed, but sadly, you potentially don't have the authority to tell them you can't do that, which is sad, because the lawsuit that will result from that horrible thing would be borne by the taxpayers, and probably a lot of work on the select board and you to clean up that mess.
Well, we do have policies, some
Well, we have
some
policies,
policy.
but as you pointed out in yours, is that sometimes some of these committees don't follow the policies, you know, and if they
Well,
don't
that
follow the
just needs to
policies.
be
and-
brought
and-
to their
and-
attention
and-
somehow.
Right,
Right.
and somehow, and the town administrator can even sometimes bring it to the attention, sometimes even try forcefully, and maybe sometimes we want you to do it more forcefully, but they're still their own body and can do their own thing, and I don't know if there's a good answer to that, but I think it's something fun to fun might not be the word.
Striking a balance.
To figure out a way to those bodies that are independent should maintain some independence, but still, you know, we have some responsibility at least, if not on the formal chart of commands, to make sure they're doing things legally and
I thought
appropriately.
there was an outcome that, you know, could be decided
Yeah, I
for
think
someone
for
who does, it's the thing we approved.
Charter,
The what?
is it
The-
a charter?
Is it charter for the committees, because like,
No, it was
but especially.
volunteer,
Well, no.
volunteer handbook.
Right, volunteer,
Volunteer.
it is the volunteer, but again, if it's an outside elected body or appointed by someone who doesn't report through to us, you know, it's harder for us to do those things, and it can be frustrating and limiting on us, and sometimes it's a tiny frustration, and sometimes it's bigger frustration, and sometimes you have to just go outside your job. When there were some personnel issues at the transfer station,
Yeah.
you know, you had no formal authority, but I think you and the Board of Health worked well together to figure out a way to give them the support, because it's also some of those other elected bodies, their personnel and HR stuff is not their strong suit, so they do need some support, and so that one actually did work out well. And then just as I went on a small tangent there, the other one is there is a balance to be kept between making timely and solid decisions and waiting to get some of the feedback from people in town. It is. I think it's always one of those that in hindsight you're going to go sometimes, boy, I wish I held off on that more, or in hindsight I wish I was made the decision faster. But it's just to be more mindful when there are things that are out there and getting some of our not just our feedback, but I think sometimes it's some of the other volunteers and other commissions that are out there. The form that is in front of me also says draft on it, in about 8 places where I could put draft, because if there are specials, especially like someone who's way better at proofreading than I am, and I struggle a couple because sometimes I wanted to copy and paste the sentence even though it wasn't structurally the way I would have written the sentence.
Actually,
But I would
you
like
just
when
meaning.
this becomes a public document that some of the people who did submit
I
forms
did find a couple
can
of-
see some of their own voice in it, and that I hopefully have captured what people have said.
I did find a couple
Yep.
typos that you could fix from.
Yeah, if you give me that, I will fix it. That's why this is draft, and we'll sort of, once I fix it, assuming that we mostly have agreement on things, that
Well-
I will do it. But I've spoken a bunch. The two of you, or even Kristen.
Well, I think you included, it was hard to tell because maybe it was Peg's comment or yours or
Mhm.
something, you know, it was hard to tell. I only had one thing, I think, and I don't have it in front of me, but one thing that I shared with Kristen this afternoon, because I wasn't sure if it was in there or not, and that was, I had given her I had given her 5s, I believe, and everything except communication was a 4, because there was a couple of incidences, foolish incidences as I'm thinking of it now, but where I was surprised at a meeting because I wasn't aware that we were going to do something that wasn't on the agenda. Say, for example, the letter to thank the fire chief. That was a complete surprise to me. I didn't know it was going to happen, probably because I just hadn't touched base with Kristen at one point. And so I just made a point of saying that all 3 members need to know the same information before a meeting. And, but I don't know if it was in there or not, Scott.
It's
but
not laid out that clearly, because I also tried, again, and so I tried to hide what
Yeah.
one particular person said, and that might have been easier to tie back to something.
Right, but I
have
mean,
no
if that's
problem
the
adding
only
it.
thing
Yep.
that was a criticism, I think that's pretty darn good.
I can't edit this copy because this is the copy that's in the board folder, not the copy that
Oh.
I wrote. But yes, I will.
Well,
make
I mean,
that note, yes.
it's not, I
Yep.
said to her, I just wanted her to
Yep.
know, so that in the
Yep.
future, that we make sure that,
Mhm.
and that was one of the things that, in my previous life as a school committee member, was that like, for example, the town administrator report could partially be to make sure everybody knows the things, this agenda item, we're gonna talk about this agenda item, we're gonna talk about this, and maybe explain it better.
Mhm.
I mean, I think it's, this type of town administrator report is more for the public.
Mhm.
Where, you know, that what I'm talking about would be more for the members.
Mhm.
But we also had 6 members on the school committee,
Right.
so it was hard to get everybody
Mhm.
with the same information. So anyway, other than that, you know, I completely agreed with everything. I think one thing that might help us
Mhm.
is to take another look. It's been a while since we looked at the special act.
Mhm.
Some things are her responsibility and some things are ours. And it's hard for us to realize sometimes, you know, when we haven't, you know, looked at it for a while. It's been a while. You know, we hired her for day to day,
Mhm.
and we should know our responsibilities.
That's a good point.
I'd just be curious to see what the other department heads, I
Yep.
mean, and feel free to strip their names off. I
No,
don't
I-
need to see
Right.
Sally said blah, blah, blah,
Yep.
but would like to see their comments
Yep.
and how they were taken into that.
Yep.
Yeah. I think
Um,
this is the first time, actually, where, other than the 3 select board members have been included, their numbers have been included. So,
Yeah.
you know, I was talking to Kristen about something else this afternoon, and we happened to touch on evaluation. And I think that might be a good thing to start, maybe put together a policy
Mhm.
about how we want it to be done,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
a 360.
Right, because again, I'd already do it a little differently
Yes.
if I did it, because the form that was sent out is good for a supervisor or employee one, not as good as like I'm talking about the TA and sending it to the select board about it. And so
Right.
and that's why several people just, again, either just wrote free text or used the blocks that were on it to
Right.
write things or totally unrelated to the blocks in.
Yes.
Almost everybody did fill out numbers in the numbers fields.
Wow.
Because I think that was the easy thing for people to do. But I think, yeah, all of them came to me via email except for one, and I had no problem figuring a way to scan that one and get that one out.
Okay. Sounds
And
good.
I'll get that out tonight or tomorrow. Kristen? Sorry, this is all about you. I think you should be involved in the conversation somehow. Do you
Oh,
have
I didn't know if
feedback?
Peg
Oh,
wanted
sorry,
to
do you have
speak
more?
before I
No,
did.
sorry, I did assume that you were sort of.
I'm good.
but, yep.
You know I'm not
Yep.
quiet, Scott.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. No, I wanted to make sure. No, I thank you for the feedback. I'm always open to, you know, constructive criticism. I was telling Chris when we spoke this afternoon, I was a competitive figure skater for 14 years. So I used to get it screamed at me on the ice, partially because you're far away, but somewhat just because it's, you know, fun to scream at people. But, you know, the one thing there's couple things I would want to comment on. You know, if people feel that they're not involved, because I really try to make an effort when I'm making a decision to involve people, mostly because I don't know everything. So I try to always involve the subject matter experts. So if someone really feels like, you know, I did something where I didn't involve them, I would love to know, because I, you know, would want to make sure that I don't make that mistake again the next time. And then the only other thing is the elected board and HR. Being the HR director with elected boards is a challenge. It's kind of all about striking a balance. And, you know, ultimately I was raised coming up as a young town administrator, that you never tell an elected board what to do. Now, that doesn't always apply, or you never tell an elected employee what to do. They're kind of like the president, right? They report to the people. They're elected by the people of the town. It's a little bit, you know, against kind of how I've been shown to do things, but what I try to do is, if there's an issue, put it out there in a kind of sort of, hey, you know, we really should be doing it this way. And I try to leave my door always open so that you know, if like with the transfer station, we spent, you know, a lot of time working on some issues, and happy to do so, and always, you know, willing to be there. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I certainly do not have the authority to direct an elected board to do anything, but happy to guide and advise. So,
And
well,
I think they were happy for your help
Yeah.
good
in that
Good.
area.
I hope so, because I'm happy. I'm happy to help on the HR front. I've got a lot of HR experience, and you know, I see myself sort of sometimes as chief problem solver. You know, that's what I spend most of my days doing, is dealing with board, committee, department head issues. So that's why I'm often working late, because I'm doing the actual like RFPs and the you know, different procurement items, and you know, like the work stuff late at night. So. But overall, I genuinely appreciate the review. I appreciate the opportunity to work for the town and for all of you. And it's really been fantastic so far. And I hope to continue on and, like you said, be able to show you some of the things that I'm able to do. Because I do agree. I think I have a lot more I can show you that I haven't had an opportunity to do yet. So thank you.
So, I don't remember now, in this process, I believe it might be appropriate for us as a board to accept the review, the written review. So I'd like to make that motion to accept it.
I'll accept it, but I still want to see the feedback first.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I have no problem with the conditional acceptance. Would be sending the feedback over. I'll send that over tonight or tomorrow. Is there more discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good. There.
Very good.
Looking forward to another year.
Yeah.
Me too.
Hopefully one with a little bit less drama and more chance to, again, put your stamp in on things.
Absolutely.
Let's see, back to the agenda. I think boards, I forgot we had executive session night too. Board questions, comments, and liaison updates. Chris?
You know, I don't have, if I have a report, I don't have it with me, but I think I'm okay, I'm good.
Yeah, I drew a blank earlier today too. I swore we just met like 4 days ago, but it actually been a week and a half.
Right?
All right, well, I'll
Good,
make up for you
good,
both.
good.
All right, so this falls under the communication, whatever we called that.
Yeah.
The lost shoe request that came in on April 11th for them to have Thursday nights behind the mall.
Oh, I thought you said lawsuit. I'm sorry.
No.
I was in a
Oh,
total
sorry.
another space there.
Lost shoe.
Yes, yes.
Shoe?
Yes,
It's
the lost shoe, they had sent in a request to have
What's
up
the
like a
name of a
pop-up.
brewery?
Yes, it's in Marlboro,
Yeah.
behind,
Oh,
right
okay.
behind Main Street. Cute brewery.
Yeah, haven't been to that
Um,
one yet.
I think the family came
Yeah.
from Berlin, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. But, so that's being addressed and taken care
Yeah,
of
Mary's
since June's
working with
coming
them.
up.
I know she
Yeah.
talked to Peter
I
Hawkins
thought we saw,
today.
I thought today we saw the permits for their events.
All right, well, and then there was another one from Redemption Rock, that they want to do it in August.
Yep.
So that one's being taken care of too?
Yes.
Is that at the mall?
Yes, they want to have that behind the mall too in
Okay.
August.
Yeah, I think the mall
A
is
lot
putting-
going on down there,
Yeah.
which is good.
They're trying to use that space to get
Yeah.
more people in the mall traffic, yeah.
Yep.
So Earth Day, Conservation asked if I could send out some quick thank yous. Bob Blair, Lisa Mayer, Laurence Holyoke, I apologize if I killed your first name. Highway, there's a big shout out to Highway. Police, there you go. Stan Rogolinski, and just all the countless other residents who took the time to make Berlin look nice and shiny new this weekend, and hopefully we can keep it that way. I did ask if they had a count on the small liquor bottles. I'm still waiting to
And
hear from
and
that.
half of mine went in the big bag, because I had a separate bag first. I had two small, those.
What do you mean
the-
you? Yours?
My personal, when I did the
Yours?
cleanup.
His
my bag-
area of
my bag
cleanup,
got
not
full.
his,
Ones you-
Not the one
not
they
his
drank, no.
contribution,
No,
correct.
I need bigger bottles than that. In my area, I just, at a certain point, by the two little bags I had to carry the nips in
They're
were
up
just
there.
overflowing, and so I
Wow.
just started
Sawyer
putting them in
Hill,
the
huh?
regular. I actually did 62 from the Clinton line
Oh.
to a telephone pole that's a part of the way. Because Bob Blair went from one direction, and I
Yeah.
went from the other, and
Well, I asked because
It was 500 when I went
Yeah.
at
Really?
11 o'clock to return.
That's the way I
Yeah.
drive home. That's a little scaring me a little bit.
Yeah, because I know
Yeah.
that,
And sadly, even in my section, they were like, you'd see none for a while, and then a pile of like 15 to 20 in one space that clearly had different age on it. Like, that's a spot where they stop on a regular basis and toss it out. It was actually sad.
That explains the
To
bad
give you a
drivers.
little bit of an idea, you know how they were using the paper bags this year?
Right.
The tall paper bag, it was full.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Before we
Yeah.
finished up for the day, it was full.
well, I know that, I think it's Highland Liquors was going to donate some money, so I'm trying to get confirmation on
Okay.
that, so we can send them a big shout out to them for being such a good Berlin partner, where they came and they said that they would help to take care of
Yes.
us on Earth Day, so I wanna make sure that they give their props on that.
Who would hear from them?
Conservation.
Okay.
Yep, so
Yeah,
I'll
let us
get,
know.
I was chatting back and forth with them today, I didn't get any updates, but wanted to send that out. And then lastly, on the ADA, oh, we have some more quotes for sinks. Actually, while you're here, I'll give them to you. So I'm gonna meet with Victoria tomorrow, she and I will send a recommendation to you. They are about half of the original quote that we received for that, so take a look at them, pipe in, ba-doom boom, pipe in. Let us know, what you think with that, and maybe we can bang out 2 or 3 of them depending upon what we have left for fundage, so Victoria or I will be in touch with you tomorrow
Perfect.
on that. But I think that's it.
You need a motion to go
Oh.
into executive
That's right.
session?
ARPA requests, are we gonna put that on a future meeting to talk about that, since the email from Laurie Trahan's, I should call her Representative Trahan, apologies.
Yes, from her chief of staff.
Her chief of staff
He
that,
called me actually that afternoon after I sent
Right.
that email that was like, don't take our money away. And he said, just so you know, they don't know what the definition of unallocated means.
Right.
They're doing some research into it. They
Yeah.
just wanted to put us on
you
notice
know, but
that
still, we shouldn't dilly.
no, I agree. So I figured on the 15th we could put that back on as an item to take
Yeah.
a look back at the list again, if
Yeah.
that works. But just to calm the
Well-
alarm bells a little bit, they're not sure that it
It's gonna
means
pass the House.
Isn't-
that
doesn't
they're going
have
to
to-
claw back money. They could be talking about money that either hasn't gone
Out yet.
out of state or
Okay.
out of federal funding, or they could be talking about things that haven't been unallocated. We've allocated over half. We can very quickly, if we have to, allocate the other portion of it.
Well, and town meeting will impact potentially how much we've allocated, because we've temporarily used some ARPA funds that we are hoping to use a
Correct.
different fund for, that if town meeting approves it, will give us more ARPA dollars.
Correct.
Yeah,
Or
because if,
unallocate some ARPA dollars.
right, because if we take the awarded and take the obligated money out
Yeah.
and peg math,
Yeah.
we've got a little over 500,000
Yeah.
left, and I would absolutely hate for that money to just be like, so
Is this
sad, too
something that
bad.
still needs to be voted on?
It does,
No,
but,
I mean, no, I'm talking about the legislature.
yeah,
Do
It
they-
does. It's a bill that
So
was
it hasn't
filed.
passed yet.
The
Right.
bill hasn't passed.
Right,
They
right,
don't know
okay.
if or when it would.
Right.
So that's why Jake called me, which I thought was very kind of him to
Right.
say, like, just don't freak out
Right.
too much. But at the same time, we've only actually spent 65,000.
yeah.
So if they were to say it's money that you have not actually spent on the books, they would claw back
No, but
the
it-
majority of it.
Yeah, but
Allocated and
around
spent.
around the country,
Two
the
different
number of
things.
towns and
Yeah, I
cities
know.
and states
People
that
would
have,
go nuts.
Oh,
Right,
yeah,
and for it to
right,
happen
right.
that quickly, we know
I know,
unfortunately
too.
Right,
nothing
this-
happens in
especially.
politics
Right.
that quick, but if there's low-hanging fruit that we
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
use it on,
Yep.
move it.
I'll make sure it's
So,
on the
yeah.
the 5:15
Yep.
agenda.
Okay, all right, now I'm done.
Okay. Anything else tonight?
No, you want a motion?
Sure.
We
I
can't
guess-
have a motion. Are we
can't-
going to do
what-
executive session
Right, so it's a
motion?
motion to go into executive
All
session.
right.
as
Yeah,
opposed to
motion
Okay.
to go into executive
Oh.
session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, 6, to consider purchase, exchange, taking, lease, or value of real property, if such discussion may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the governmental body, Riverbridge, and will return to open session thereafter only to adjourn the meeting.
Right, and I don't think I need a roll call anymore, because
Yeah,
we're in person.
yeah,
Do I
you
still
do.
need a roll
For
call?
executive
Yeah,
session.
you do
Still
for
need a roll call,
executive
okay.
session.
So,
Keith, aye.
right?
Stone Eye.
And Hawkins, aye. And so we will enter executive session, and we'll only come out of executive session just to adjourn.
Right.
There'll be no more business tonight. Thanks.
Mhm.